Scott Galloway has a piece of advice for anxious men, and I largely agree with it. If you're watching this video, you're probably someone who struggles with anxiety and want to know how to fix it. Scott says action absorbs anxiety. Whenever you feel low, defeated, or frustrated, the best solution is to take action. That's what Scott Galloway says. What does that look like? Get out of the house, make the phone call, apply for the position, go to the gym, have the difficult conversation. Stop waiting until you feel completely confident before you begin. For a lot of men, this is good advice. But there's another question that high functioning men need to ask, in my opinion. What if action is not only how you manage your anxiety? What if constant action has also become how you avoid understanding it? Because working harder, solving every problem, staying busy, and taking control can look like discipline from the outside. But internally, inside, those behaviors, ways of doing things that you're so used to can become a way to avoid things like fear, shame, disappointment, or the possibility that you're not in control. I mean, who wants to stare shame in the face, right? So in this video, I want to help you answer a very important question. Is your action moving you toward the life you value, or is the action protecting you from something you just don't want to feel? Now, Scott Galloway isn't wrong. Taking action is often helpful. When you're spending hours imagining every possible outcome, taking just one reasonable step can interrupt the cycle, interrupt the rumination. So, sending the email, submitting the application, walking into the gym, calling the friend, just leaving the house, or simply asking the question you've had in your mind for days, weeks, months. Taking the simple calculated action can replace imagined information with real information. And you might spend 3 weeks worrying that someone is going to reject you. Then you ask and you receive an answer. Now, the answer may not be the one you wanted, but at least you're no longer trapped in the endless anticipation and rumination. Now, action can also restore a sense of agency. You may not control the final outcome, but you can identify the part that belongs to you, that you do have control over, and do something about it. Now, here's an important distinction I want to be clear about. Some actions are extremely productive forms of running away. I want to say that again. Some actions are extremely productive forms of running away. You can work 12 hours a day and still be avoiding the most important problem in your life. You can exercise every morning and still have no idea what you're feeling. You can solve everyone else's problems while refusing to acknowledge that you're overwhelmed. You can create detailed plans because uncertainty feels intolerable. You can stay constantly busy because the moment you stop, you begin wondering whether you're doing enough, earning enough, achieving enough, or becoming enough. And you're so used to it. That behavior might look productive in this culture of productivity. The question to ask yourself is, what function is that behavior serving? And I want you to think about two categories: action toward and action away. Action toward means something like, I'm taking this step because it serves a responsibility, a goal, a relationship, or a value that matters to me. There's a real problem. I've identified the part that belongs to me, the part that I can control. Action away means I'm doing this because stopping would force me to experience something I don't want to feel. I may be trying to escape uncertainty, maybe trying to escape helplessness, to prove that I'm still competent. You might be trying to prevent someone from becoming disappointed in you, or trying to avoid the fear that you're falling behind. I point these out because the same behavior can be action toward in one situation and action away from what you actually want in another. For example, working late can be a reasonable response to a real deadline. However, working late every night can also prevent you from going home to a relationship that feels strained. Exercise can support your physical and emotional health. Exercise can also become the only place where you feel disciplined, successful, or in control. Planning can prepare you for an important decision. Planning can also create the illusion that if you think long enough, you can eliminate every possibility of regret. Problem solving can be a genuine expression of love. Problem solving can also protect you from the helplessness of sitting beside someone when you can't immediately remove their pain. So the question is not simply, is this a good behavior or a bad behavior? The question is, what is this behavior doing for me right now, in the here and now? And let's talk about a few examples. Imagine that your boss questions one of your decisions. Okay, the conversation between the two of you lasts 5 minutes. Your boss identifies one area that needs to be reconsidered. So you go back to your desk and you spend the next 3 hours writing an explanation that nobody requested. You go home, but you're still mentally defending your decision. You replay the tone of your boss's voice. You begin wondering whether your judgment is respected. You start thinking about whether your position is secure. Hmm. You may tell yourself that you're simply being thorough, and perhaps part of you is simply being thorough. But the amount of work may no longer be proportionate to the actual correction that was requested. It's no longer a reasonable response given the actual facts of the situation. And so, what may really feel at risk is your competence. The feedback from your boss didn't only sound like this decision may need to be revised. You heard maybe you're not as capable as people think you are. So you begin working harder to repair not only the decision, but what the decision made you feel about yourself. That's a very different problem. Okay? And so here's another common example I want you to think about if this relates to you. Your wife or your partner says, I haven't felt very connected to you lately. You immediately start offering solutions. You suggest a trip. You say, maybe you can plan a date night. You list the household responsibilities you've been handling. You explain that work has been unusually demanding. And you remind her of all the things you've done for the family. Hmm. Now, those actions may come from a sincere desire to improve the relationship. Usually they do. But the urgency to fix the problem may also protect you from feeling helpless. Because when someone you love says that he, she, they feel alone, you might hear, you're failing as a husband, you're failing as a partner. And if that's what you hear, listening can truly feel unbearable. And so you want to move as quickly as possible from the feeling of failure to a plan that proves in your eyes that you're not failing. So the solution becomes sort of a shield. You may be, excuse me, a shield because you're trying to protect yourself before you truly understand what she's trying to tell you. And here's another example. So an unexpected expense comes up. It's frightening, but it's manageable. You've tried to plan well. And so you immediately begin searching for another source of income. You start cutting expenses that don't actually need to be cut. You become irritated when your family spends money. You stay awake at night calculating the different financial scenarios, like 0 to 100 in terms of doom and gloom. You may be telling yourself, I'm just being responsible, okay? But I want you to ask yourself, is the intensity of my response proportionate to the actual expense? Or did this unexpected expense bring up a much larger fear? Maybe the fear is, I should have anticipated this. Everyone depends on me. If I can't prevent financial uncertainty, I'm not doing my job. What kind of provider allows himself to be caught off guard? Now, the pressure is real, but the emotional meaning you've assigned to the pressure may be making it feel much more dangerous than it is. And then there's rest. This is a big one for a lot of people. You finally have a free Saturday. There is no urgent deadline. Nothing significant requires your immediate attention. Then, like within an hour, you've created a project. You begin reorganizing the garage. You're searching for recipes for dinner. You check your work email. You research an investment. You make some sort of list to prepare for the upcoming week. Yeah. You tell yourself that simply enjoying being is not enough. You just enjoy being productive. And maybe you do. I'm sure there are people who do. But can you stop? Can you sit down without feeling guilty? Can you spend time doing something that has no measurable output? Can you rest without feeling as though you're falling behind? Can you be present without needing to prove that the time you rested was well used, wasn't wasted? The problem is not that you enjoy accomplishing things. That's great. The question is whether productivity has become one of the primary ways you reassure yourself that you're valuable. Because if your value depends on being useful, rest will not feel restful. It'll feel threatening. So, how can you tell the difference between useful action and emotional avoidance? Here are 4 questions to really ask yourself. Question number 1, what problem is this action actually solving? I want you to think about it. Name the concrete problem. Then identify the reasonable, proportionate action that it requires. For example, you've got a bill due on Friday and you need to transfer the money. So that's a clear problem with a very clear action. But if you transfer the money and then spend the next 4 hours reviewing every financial decision you've made during the past 10 years, you may no longer be solving the bill. You may be managing fear or shame or uncertainty or something else. You can ask, what will be different when I do this, when I pay the bill, when the action is complete? If it's hard for you to answer that, you may not be solving the external problem anymore, and there may be something deeper internally to take a closer look at. Question number 2, can I stop when the useful part of the action is complete? You sent the email. Is that enough? You made the plan. Can you stop there? You completed the workout. Can you just go home? You apologized and proposed a change. Now, can you allow the other person some time to respond? Or does your mind immediately find another task, another explanation, another contingency, another way to prove yourself? Your inability to just stop, give space, may be telling you that the action is serving a larger emotional purpose. You may be trying to create a feeling of certainty that in reality, no amount of action can Guarantee. Question number 3 is, what happens inside me when I stop? When you put the laptop down, what appears? Is it guilt, anxiety, emptiness, helplessness, restlessness, fear that someone else is working harder than you, fear that you may become irrelevant, that the people who depend on you will discover you don't have everything under control? Hmm. Don't immediately try to remove the feeling. I want you to notice it and name it. That's important because the feeling that appears when the action stops after you do the thing might help you understand what the action, the thing you've been doing, that you've gotten so used to doing, has been protecting you from. Question number 4. Am I moving toward a value or away from discomfort? Something useful, a useful action might be uncomfortable. That's expected most times. Having a boundary might disappoint people. Asking for help might feel vulnerable. And asking for help might create some uncertainty as well. But if the action moves you towards honesty, connection, responsibility, health, or integrity, things you can value, that's important. Avoidant action often provides immediately some relief, but the underlying problem remains unfixed. You explain yourself again, but you still don't feel understood. You fix the problem on the surface, but the relationship still feels disconnected. You stay busy, but the moment you stop, the pressure, the anxiety comes back. That's when action might no longer be absorbing anxiety, but just covering it without actually helping you to make progress. So this is where you can use something I call the press check. The first step is to pinpoint the pressure. Like, what actually happened to start this snowballing off? Not the entire story, not everything it reminds you of. Like, what is the concrete thing that actually happened? For example, my partner said she doesn't feel close to me. My boss questioned my decision. An unexpected expense came up. I made a mistake. I have an afternoon with nothing scheduled. The second step is to recognize, figure out what feels at risk for you, what feels threatened. What did the situation appear to put on trial? Your competence, your security, your authority, your relationship, someone's respect, your identity as a provider, your belief that you're a good husband or father. The third step is to identify the emotion, not only stressed, sad, angry, not just frustrated. Like, what's underneath that? Are you afraid? Are you ashamed? Do you feel helpless, disappointed, rejected, resentful, uncertain, even maybe overwhelmed? Hmm. The fourth step is to spot the shield. What's it protecting you from? What do you automatically do to protect yourself from that feeling? Do you work harder? Do you try to take control, try to fix, argue, try to explain, withdraw, isolate? Do you shut down, become irritated? Do you pretend that I don't care? Hmm. And the final step is to choose a steadier response. Not a perfect one, just a steadier one. What response protects your values instead of merely protecting you from emotional discomfort? Let's go back to the relationship example. Now, your partner might say, I haven't felt close to you. Okay. The pressure, the thing that brought it all up, sorry, the snowball, is the conversation. What feels at risk or threatened may be your identity as a good husband. The emotions, the things you feel, may be shame, fear, hopelessness, and the shield that you put up might be fixing, defending, listing everything you do for your partner, for the family. A steadier response, more in line with your values, might sound like, my instinct is to fix this immediately because I feel helpless hearing that you're unhappy. Before I offer solutions, tell me what you most need me to understand. Notice what happened there. You didn't become passive. You didn't just surrender. You didn't agree that everything was your fault, but you identified the pressure accurately enough to ultimately choose a better action more in line with your values, and that will strengthen your relationship. A few other questions you can use or sentences you can use, for example, at work. I'm noticing that this feedback feels bigger than the actual issue. Let me separate what needs to be corrected from what I'm making it mean about my competence. And that's something you can think within yourself to help you kind of calm down, pause, and be able to act differently. When you're overthinking, you can think to yourself, I've taken the reasonable action available to me. Continuing to work on this tonight will not give me more control over the outcome. When you need support, you can say, I'm not asking you to solve this. I need to say it out loud so I can understand what is actually bothering me and see if that helps. And when you want to take over, when that routine comes up of taking over to try to get control or fix things, you can say or think, I'm uncomfortable with the uncertainty, but discomfort doesn't automatically mean that someone else is handling this incorrectly. And when you feel compelled to keep working and not take rest or pause, you can think to yourself, the useful part is complete. What am I afraid I will feel if I stop, if I rest? What we're trying to do is not spend all day analyzing every emotion, every situation, okay? And it's certainly not to wait until you feel completely comfortable before doing difficult things or taking a different perspective. Scott Galloway is right that many men find it helpful to do something, and that's what they're taught. They need to leave the house, they need to build competence, they need to tolerate rejection, they need to form real relationships, they need to contribute, they need to stop allowing fear to make every decision, are all things that I agree with, and I think Scott Galloway advocates for as well. But high-functioning men also need to recognize that action can't answer every emotional question. Sometimes the most courageous action is making the call, and sometimes the most courageous action is asking for help. And sometimes the most courageous action is stopping and resting long enough to admit, I've already done what I can do, and I'm still afraid. And that is really, really good information. So the next time you feel compelled to work harder, solve the problem immediately, create another plan, or take control, ask yourself this question. What would I have to feel if I stopped? Your answer may tell you whether you're taking meaningful action or protecting yourself from something that still needs your attention. Something to think about. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more.